Well, hello everyone, good morning. We have today a guest with us. It's Dr. Jack Hunter. Jack is also linked to the Religious Experience Research Center as an honorary fellow. However, he's also a lecturer in the institute, in particular linked to the Sophia Center, where he teaches on the MA run in humanities by Nick Campion. So he has two hats on, linked to the research center, but also linked to the university. But he has a third hat on because he's also teaching since graduating from his PhD. Jack did his PhD at Bristol University in anthropology by doing fieldwork on spiritualist communities in the Bristol area. He's also very known worldwide for starting and still organizing a journal on paranthropology. And so he is really linked to a lot of scholars in anthropology as well as borderline other areas who work on different forms of phenomena which can be located into paranthropology, but also linked to religious experience, spiritual experience, and so on. And so I'm really grateful for Jack to be with us and to tell us a bit more about his own research. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I'll start off just by saying a little bit about what my PhD research was all about. So basically, I studied a group of developing spirit mediums. They were developing trance and physical mediumship, which are kind of, within spiritualism, they're quite extreme forms of mediumship. Because usually if you go to a spiritualist church or, spiritualist centers, which there are a lot of in Bristol, you'll see, a medium standing on the platform and they'll say, like, I'm getting a J coming through. Can anyone accept that? And then they'll look at the audience and the audience might say, yeah, I'll take that. And then they'll give them a reading. But the mediums that I was researching would go into a trance, they would go into a deep altered state of consciousness. And then when they were in that state, different spirit personalities would talk through their bodies. And sometimes they were spirits of deceased loved ones. I know some of the mediums had, if they'd had a brother or sister who'd passed away, they might become their spirit guide. And other times these spirits would also be kind of like celebrities, which happens quite a lot. But, it was very interesting. And then they were also trying to develop physical mediumship. So, people who've seen things like Ghostbusters and stuff like that might be familiar with ideas like ectoplasm, this semi-physical substance that's supposed to be able to manifest spirits. And so these guys were trying to develop ectoplasmic materializations as well. So, in terms of spiritualism, it's actually kind of like on the fringe of spiritualism as well. But it's got a rich kind of heritage that runs right back to the 19th century. So, it's part of part of my research was establishing how much it is part of a continuous tradition to the 19th century. And I think actually it is. They're producing or trying to produce the same kind of phenomena. The rituals that they use and all the techniques are the same. So it seemed to me that I'd found, an as authentic as you can get, physical mediumship group. So what I did was I took a leaf out of Edith Turner's book and approached it from an experiential, phenomenological and participatory perspective. So I wanted to understand what it was like to, attend seances, and also to a certain extent what it was like to be a medium myself. So I did some mediumship development sessions with them and had some unusual experiences. One of which, the one I talk about most frequently, is when my left hand seemed to take on a life of its own and was moving around seemingly, beyond my control. So what I wanted to do was try to think of a way that I could incorporate all of these experiential things, which you might think of as like paranormal experiences or whatever, not just my own, but also of the mediums that I was talking with and the people who attended these seances, and try to think about them in a non-reductive way. Because in anthropology and social sciences, quite often the emphasis is on trying to explain religious experiences or to reduce them down to a simple explanation, maybe to find a particular region in the brain that's responsible for, sensations of God, or or whatever. It's to do with neurochemical imbalances. Or they might take a social functional perspective and say that it's all about social cohesion and binding people together. Or they might go down the kind of grief route and suggest that it serves a psychological function. But each one of those is reducing it down to something very specific that doesn't take into account this whole complexity, and not least of which, it doesn't take account of parapsychology and the research. It's 150 years of research in psychical research and parapsychology, specifically researching mediums. And over that time, there is some interesting data. I mean, some of it's obviously debatable, but within that, there seems to be something going on. So this is part of the reason why I founded this journal, Paranthropology, because I wanted to provide a platform for a conversation between all of this research that had been going on in parapsychology and psychical research, but also the stuff that was going on in the social sciences and humanities and anthropology and religious studies. It seemed like there was much of an overlap between, the empirical scientific research on mediumship and then the social scientific research on mediumship. So when I'm trying to produce this non-reductive anthropology of the paranormal, it's really about incorporating lots of different perspectives from different disciplines and trying to understand religious experiences and paranormal experiences holistically, I suppose, in as much complexity as possible without reducing it to a single thing. And that's not to say that, mediumship doesn't perform a social function or a psychological function, or that the brain isn't involved or anything like that, but actually that all of these things are going on simultaneously. And the danger is that we focus in on one small explanation and think that we've settled the whole thing, when actually you've ignored experience and parapsychology and all of the other subtle things that are going on. So that's basically, that's been the main thrust of my writing and research, is to try and think of a way to do this, to be open and exploratory, but still critical and academic.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. It's can you also tell a bit more about what you're doing at the moment for your new research project?
Yeah,
ecology.
That's it. Yeah. At the moment, I'm teaching a master's course in ecology and spirituality with the Sophia Center. And really what we're doing with that is exploring, ideas about what ecology is, but also what is spirituality and what's the relationship between spiritual experiences and kind of like engagement with ecology. So in landscapes, in woodlands and places like that. But really it's sort of expanded out of a book project that I published last year called Greening the Paranormal, which is all about exploring ecological, the climate threads that run through paranormal experiences. And it might seem at first glance that these two things are totally disconnected, but actually when you look at it, there's a lot of interesting connections in there. I mean, one major one that I stumbled across was in accounts of alien abductions and things like that, and also in near-death experiences, that one of the chief things that people come away with after those kinds of experiences is a sense of greater connection to the environment, or they come back with a message of needing to kind of like work to protect the planet and things like that. So it just turns out there's all of these different threads running through the paranormal, extraordinary experiences, mystical experiences that seem to have something to do with, the natural world and how we engage with it and interact with it. And it ties in with things like animism and different modes of conceptualizing like the world around us, whether it consists of inert matter or whether it consists of living things, or if it's animated by spirits and things like that. So there's lots of things, and this is basically what we're exploring over this MA course.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so to the students, you got now a glimpse on what Jack is doing and what the approach of Paranthropology is. I want you now to read one of the articles I upload on Moodle, and in our seminar later on we will discuss what you heard from Jack and the article. And so talk to you soon.